It's not about the big moment of, aha, it's over, I've released, and I'm going to be at peace forever. It's about the subtle shifts for long-lasting radical change. And we can't just be expected to make these big leaps overnight. We have to be in the subtle, energetic shift of our own frequency and our own thought forms, and repeat that and repeat that and repeat that regularly, like a full-time job, in order to create that change. I think of guides within and the universe as kind of the same voice. So when we're listening to the voice of our higher self, we're listening to the voice that inner voice is in the same vibrational frequency as what we could call the universe or a spirit guide. So it's wisdom, it's inner wisdom, it's inspiration, it's a sense of knowing. When we listen to those voices, we can be guided from a place of certainty rather than a place of fear. We can be guided from a place of faith rather than a place of struggle or control. That tuning into that inner voice, however you refer to it or connect to it, is the only job. And that happens when we relax our nervous system, when we slow down enough to listen, when we show up for our assignments, our spiritual assignments, and clear up all the wreckage that has blocked us from hearing that inner voice. And the more healthy we become mentally and spiritually, the easier it is to hear that guidance. And then we can be led by that guidance in our life rather than trying to force outcomes. We can allow rather than trying to figure everything out. I'm so grateful to you for speaking on behalf of depression. But you used the word fighting. I'm fighting on behalf of my happiness. Once you started to speak about your seasonal depression, I started to notice this need to get out of it fast, which is super understandable. When we have a depressed feeling coming on, often we can perpetuate the feeling because of the fear of the feeling. So you're doing everything right. You're on a medicated path with the help of a psychiatrist. You're doing EFT. You're doing your exercise. You're tuning into Dear Gabby. You're practicing your spiritual practices. You're also experiencing a biochemical thing that happens seasonally. It's what's up. So what I would ask you to try out would be in the moments when you notice that feeling come on. Notice what you notice. Instead of trying to push it away, trying to pick up the affirmation, trying to run out the door, trying to fix it fast, I want you to give yourself a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to breathe into that space where do you feel it in your body? Lower back, okay. Breathe into that space. Even with me right now, just breathe into the feeling and really take it in. And then on the exhale, just let it go. And keep your eyes closed. And I want to work with you on this, okay? So breathing into the feeling of that depression and that discomfort and just letting it be what it needs to be. Don't judge it. And on the exhale, you release it. Breathing in once again, don't judge it. Notice what you notice. Be present with the feeling. On the exhale, let it go. There's no need to push it away. You're smiling. That's right. Because because I think that people get so afraid, like if I sit in my depression, what will happen to me? What I'm not suggesting is I'm not suggesting you sit in it. I'm suggesting you transform it by honoring it. We can't heal something unless we have the willingness to to see that it's there, to respect that it's there, to honor that it's there, to be present with what it is. Okay, you have something to tell me. This doesn't take away any of the medicated paths that people need to be on when you have mental illness or you have a biochemical condition. By no means, but it can be in addition to. So becoming accepting of the experience in the moment allows you to be present with the experience so that it can be transformed. If we're trying to push past an experience because it's so uncomfortable, we don't allow the full discharge of the emotional state. We don't allow the processing of our nervous system to process an emotion. We don't allow the feelings to be respected. So maybe once or twice a day, when you notice the depression come on, just notice what you notice. Be present with the feeling. Be present with the experience. Don't judge it. Don't try to push it away. Just breathe in. And if you can do that for 90 seconds, the studies have shown that if you breathe into a feeling for 90 seconds, it can transform. So if you breathe into that feeling for 90 seconds and release it, you can have a big transformation. You got me? I really love you. I love that you keep coming back. I don't realize it's you every time I bring you on, but I guess I'm drawn to you. And I also just want you to know that even when you're going through a depressed place right now and the experience that you're in, you're really bright and you shine such gorgeous light and your energy is so elevated, even when you're going through something tough. So just want to reflect that back to you. Well, let's get back to that place that we were talking about. Let's not try so hard. Let's just be with what is, because that's not defeated. That's a giving over. That's a releasing. That's a letting go of, rather than forcing and controlling. You got me? Go, girl. Keep it up. Nice work, my love. What a nice one. I'm worthy of feeling good. Remember, that's your affirmation. EFT is called Emotional Freedom Technique. It is a practice that in many ways has saved me and helped me through PTSD, helped me through the recollection of dissociated trauma and remembrance of trauma. It is a tool that I use for phobias, bad habits, changing my nervous system in a minute. It is similar to EMDR. If someone has heard of EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, that's a therapeutic process that you would need to do with a trained EMDR specialist. But what's so fabulous about EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, otherwise known as tapping, what's so valuable about it is that you can do it for yourself. It's very helpful in the beginning to do it led by a video on YouTube or my friends at the Tapping Solution or one of my free videos of tapping. It's very helpful to have that person leading you. But once you get the hang of it, you can be self-taught and you can start to tap on your own. And what tapping... No. The actual process is quite simple. It's just the value of having a guide through a free resource on YouTube, like Brad Yates or someone like that. The helpful benefit of that is that there's a container that you're being held in, rather than taking yourself into like an emotional disturbance that you shouldn't necessarily be going into. So what happens is you tap on these different energy meridians, the karate chop point, the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the nose, the chin, the collarbone, and under the arm, right on the bra line. And you tap in this cycle. It doesn't matter what side, you could tap both sides, but you have to go in that cycle. And as you tap on these different energy meridians, you are stimulating the vagus nerve to help you regulate out of that sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state. You're calming your nervous system. You're also really sending a message to the amygdala, the fight-flight response, that it's safe to settle. It's safe to step back, step aside. And in that more resourced place where we're not in that heightened level of hyperarousal and fight and flight, we can begin to allow our nervous system to process unresolved energetic disturbances. So an unresolved energetic disturbance could be something as minor as my son had a tantrum this morning and I'm annoyed by it, to I'm resolving a PTSD. It doesn't mean that the tantrum might clear a lot faster than the PTSD, but you will get relief in the moment from both with EFT. Most of the time, 90% of the time, I think you'll get relief. And when you practice EFT, you actually identify what's the most pressing issue. And so let's say it's someone that's struggling with PTSD, but they don't want to talk about the trauma. They can just tap on the most pressing issue, that they have gut issues, like their stomach is messed up. Their stomach might be messed up because of the trauma. So just tapping on the stomach, that being the most pressing issue in the moment, actually is working on the trauma. resolving whatever is right in front of you is also resolving what is behind you. And so it's so cool. Like, you don't have to get into the story. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to dig stuff up. You can just allow yourself to tap and talk about the disturbance, guide yourself to have a emotional release, and then begin in the second round to tap on more regulating thoughts and more centering, grounding perspectives. It's something that we could do together today to just experience it. And tapping is one of the most powerful techniques for anyone who is devoted and committed to feeling better and wants a fast solution that they can turn to and use on their own when they're in need. I'm not one of those people that just like says a cool thing. I really do it. I won't say it unless I do it. So you can definitely quote me on being unapologetic about my self-care. It is my highest priority, because if my temple, if my energy field, if my physical presence, if my mental psyche is not steady, is not at ease, is not regulated, then everything in my life gets dysregulated. Everything, my work, my team, my child, my husband, because our energy is our source of power. Our energy is what attracts towards us. Our energy is what is the creative force within us. Our energy is what creates support and sustainable experiences with the people that are around us. So instead of just giving, pushing, I have to focus all that first onto myself. Self-care for me looks like sleep hygiene. I go to bed at 9 p.m. and I wake up at 7:30 p.m. every single day. That's like almost 10 hours of sleep, if not more. I stop eating dinner at 6 p.m. just so that I can have a nice, subtle fast, for 13 hours or so. I will be unapologetic about my hour-long meditation that's in the middle of the day that I had to miss today, which I'll do the second we're done with this. I go into my meditations. I won't actually miss it, even if it gets adjusted because of my schedule. I never miss it, right? And people might be like, well, you work for yourself. You got the time to do it. I've never been busier in my entire life. And I make the time to create that space. And that is, like I said, a non-negotiable. Exercise, mental health, mental fitness. No matter what your circumstances, you can control your breath. You can control your thoughts. You can control, I don't even love the word control, but you have the power to adjust your thinking, adjust your breathing, adjust your eating, some people may not have the privilege of eating organic or beautiful food, but they can make smarter choices. And we just have to take our well-being into our own hands and really consciously show up for ourselves. It's obviously easier to do when you may have the childcare that you have or whatever it is. So I don't want to be this like asshole that shows up and is like, everybody has to meditate for an hour a day. Not everybody has an hour a day, but find what works for you and become unapologetic about it. It's that little stuff that actually can be so activating and triggering even as we become adults, right? So how good for you that you are now owning your name. I don't really have an energetic tolerance for the internet BS, so it's only love here. That's the plan. I think that you're right. It is a boundary. Totally. How can I support you today? Yeah, letting go of control is a topic that is not only the theme for today's show on Dear Gabby, because our card was, if you think you've surrendered, surrender more, but it's probably one of the most difficult achievements we can accomplish. And I want to actually acknowledge that letting go of control is an achievement, because when we are in a chronic state of trying to control our life circumstances, it's really a chronic state of trying to feel safe. We use these mechanisms of trying to keep our world in this package, in this path, in this plan, and we control ourselves, our lives, other people, our circumstances, our timelines, our manifestations, our health, whatever it may be, as a false sense of safety. Because when we actually fully surrender, like we've been talking about today, and we start to trust in a plan beyond our own, and we start to allow and be in the acceptance of what is, and we start to lead from a place and live from a place of inspiration rather than the manipulation, that's when we realize that that is the greatest source of safety. But in this worldly experience that we're having, we have it all backwards. Our fear of being unsafe, which is a common theme throughout the lives of most individuals, given the fact that even the slightest thing in our childhood could establish a belief system of not being safe, right? Even with you were mentioning some people saying that your last name the wrong way made you feel an insecurity, a sense of I'm not good enough and therefore I'm not safe. And so we find all these different coping mechanisms, and controlling our life is one of the biggest ones. And truly most coping mechanisms are really just a form of control. Even addiction is another form of trying to be in control of our feelings, our emotions. Even even if it's like a positive habit, it can still be another way that we're trying to control. And so the answer truly as how do we release that control is in my world, releasing the need to control has to be replaced with something else, because we can't just take, if you think that form of controlling is how you stay safe, you can't just sort of take off the life jacket. So you need to put something in its place slowly and comfortably, because you don't want to just, blast yourself with a new behavior. And so what does it look like to slowly and comfortably begin to release the grip? Well, some of it could be something as subtle as taking one area of your life and starting to just adjust your behavioral patterns a little bit, right? So if you've been super controlling with what you eat, start to just subtly make some adjustments. Or if you've been trying to control a relationship, start to make subtle adjustments. And so those subtle shifts in your behavior start to add up and can actually become a new pattern and a new behavioral experience. But then the other bit here is if you're going to take away the safety net, what are you going to put in its place to feel safe enough? And that sense of safety has to come from a deep inner experience. And the only way that we can really let go of our coping mechanisms is to start to garner that sense of safety within ourselves. And so how does that come in? Okay. We can start to begin to establish a new baseline for safety through, first and foremost, really understanding our nervous system. And so when you are in a place of the sympathetic fight flight response, or you're getting all that rush of cortisol and you're feeling that anxiety, become the witness of it. Start to notice when you're in that place, because in that place, that's when you want to control, right? When you're relaxed and you've got your, chill moment, you're not trying to control things. You're just letting things be, right? When you're on a beach or whatever it is, whatever your moment of relaxation is. So start to notice when you're in that place of that sympathetic arousal. And in those moments, do something in place of the need to control. So what could you do instead? You could breathe in for 3 strokes and out for 8, right? So if it's in 2, 3, out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that quick in breath and that longer out breath actually starts to regulate your nervous system. And so something as simple as that, noticing that you're in that sympathetic state, doing something like a breath pattern where you breathe in with a quicker in breath and a long exhale can just start to regulate your nervous system. And that simple act of breath actually starts to calm you down, and it sends a message to your brain, I'm safe in this moment. And then that energetic sense of safety makes it so that you don't have to do that thing that makes you try to control, or doesn't make you think that thought that's trying to be in control. It's allowing you to say to yourself proactively, I'm safe in this moment now. Okay, that's a very long-winded answer. 100%. And it's an undoing of an old way of being, because the only way that we can create a new pattern is to, or release an old pattern is to create a new pattern. And getting into the new pattern of witnessing your nervous system, giving yourself practices for self-regulation. Even a prayer is a practice of self-regulation. A prayer could be, thank you, universe, for taking this from me. or thank you to, in the case of Anne, who was just with us, and her daughter, thank you, Callie, for helping me through this. It's that giving over. It is what we're referring to today, which is surrender. It's not a giving up, it's a giving over. And listen, a lot of people listening are like, okay, all that sounds nice, but how the hell am I going to do this? It's not about the big moment of, aha, it's over, I've released, and I'm going to be at peace forever. It's about the subtle shifts for long-lasting radical change. And we can't just be expected to make these big leaps overnight. We have to be in the subtle, energetic shift of our own frequency and our own thought forms, and repeat that and repeat that and repeat that regularly, like a full-time job, in order to create that change. Right. And what you do have control over is how you feel. What you do have control over is what you're thinking about. What you do have control over is your breath, right? So using the areas of life where you can lean into what you can regulate and the practices. But the biggest piece is to start to tune into why we feel unsafe in the first place. And that's where our deeper therapeutic practices are going to be necessary for people. And I'm always going to say that over and over. I'm not a therapist. I am a great student of therapy, but I'm not a therapist. And so a big next step for a lot of the people watching this show or listening to it in an iteration later is to be in the inquiry regularly of those moments when you're trying to control, asking yourself, in what way do I feel unsafe right now? And then, really start to pay attention. How do I feel unsafe right now? What is making me feel unsafe right now? And getting into that inquiry and bringing that to your therapy, or bringing that to your coach, or to whoever you can find in your world to do deeper work. Someone that can hold you in a professional setting to really go into the deeper work so that you can undo that fear and that feeling of being unsafe. I have 3 different therapists, and for a long time in the last 3 years, I was doing 3 therapy sessions a week. And let me tell you something, I feel fucking awesome because I've put the time in. Right now, I just want to be really honest that sounds like a lot. Not everybody needs 3 therapy sessions a week. It's also a luxury to be able to have those resources. But there are a lot of resources out there. There are a lot of people, especially right now. There's a lot of resources for this kind of therapeutic support. So that stigma around therapy has to be abolished, because we are living in a time where we absolutely need to do deeper work in order to really survive, but most importantly, to thrive and move through these times, right? Yay, Doug. We're going to take this conversation even further. This is the beginning of a deeper dive. So here's a message to all of the healthcare providers, the mental health care providers, the coaches, the spiritual teachers, the therapists, the psychiatrists who are in the service of others during COVID-19. Here's your message. Do your work like a full-time job, your work, your inner work, like a full-time job. Make it your deepest devotional commitment daily. Because if you are not fully grounded in the presence of your own stability, your own regulated nervous system, your own sense of security and safety, then you will become the victim of these times. You will take on unconsciously the wounds and the trauma of others. You will become almost like a sponge for all that's happening around you. So I don't doubt that anyone that's in these types of professions has their own practices and has their own therapy. But what I am actually saying is take it to the next level. I'm saying go further, make it the biggest part of your day, the most valuable, most important part of your day, to stay grounded, to stay regulated, to stay secure, to stay safe. Because as a practitioner, you need to be steady to hold others in their trauma. So if you are not in what Richard Schwartz would call self-regulated resourced self from an IFS standpoint, or your higher self from a spiritual perspective, or your spiritual alignment from a Gabby Bernstein perspective. If you're not in that attuned alignment, then you will be the sponge to pick up all the energy that is, one, sucking you dry and also imprinting upon you. So the bottom line is that we have to have devotional strategic practices throughout the day for groundedness, for cleansing, for clearing, for all that's up. Then on top of that, I just want to take a moment to just say, yeah, this is really hard. This is really hard. I mean, I remember saying to my therapist the other day, I'm like, you're like Jesus. Like, I was like, I just couldn't even believe what I could be bringing to her. And the fact that she's sitting there with 6, 7 people a day with these same stories over and over and over again, repeated back to her. So I just said, this is like Jesus, like you are just like a Sherpa carrying us through this experience. So and she pretty much said exactly what I'm saying. She said, well, I'm caring for myself, and that's how I can hold the space for you. And so that's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. And to be in acceptance that this has been a rough time. This has been a hard time. There's no doubt in the world. Be super loving and compassionate towards yourself for all that this is bringing up to you as a human being. Because therapists and healthcare workers, it can be easy to perceive these types of people as superheroes, right? Oh, they've got it all together. They're the ones that are caring for everybody else. And that's a codependent pattern that we can get into as carers, as healers, where we think, okay, I've got to be perfect. I've got to hold it all together for everybody else. But if you're not caring for yourself first, if you're not putting your oxygen mask on first, there's absolutely no way you will have enough breath to care for others. So you gotta just go even further and deeper with your own self-compassion, self-care, and self-spiritual practices and personal growth practices, period. And I teach a lot about energy protection. And energetic protection begins by the conscious choice to decide before you see that patient, before you sit down, before I get on Dear Gabby, before I do anything in a one-on-one situation or even a one-to-many, I set the intention that I am going to not give over my energy, but I'm going to work with source energy, with the energy of the universe, and that I'm not going to take on the energy of others, that I'm here to be in the service of the conversation of love, but I make a very clear distinction before I show up for this show and on stage and anytime that I'm working with others, that I am not going to take on your shit and I'm not going to let you take my shit. And say that when you sit down in your therapy with your session internally. That's a prayer. I'm not here to take on your shit, and I'm not going to give you my shit. And that's it. And then cleanse again when they walk out the door. Retrieve from me anything that I've lost, and remove from me any negative energy I've picked up. Call the shots. Set the intentions, and also just use your breath work. Use your prayer. Use your meditation. Grounding. The only way to move through this COVID experience as a healer is to stay grounded, to stay steady. If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.